This episode is for anyone who's ever experienced the pain and emptiness of an incredible connection that just never went anywhere.
I was here for the fireworks show, but then I would dip out, if things didn't work out. I didn't have the capacity. And I like to say it's like, we know the term kaboom. It's like I was here for the ka, but I would like dip for the boom, and that was my MO. And in working with so many men over the years, I'm like, I see this pattern, not just from me being that way in the past, but also a lot of men being so open and available for the beginning stages of connection, but then not having the capacity or not choosing to have the capacity to be able to be there in open communication and vulnerability in deciding whether this is going to go the long distance or it's just a now thing.
If you've ever experienced a connection like this, whether you're the one addicted to the thrill of the new or you were once the new toy thrown to the side once the novelty wore off, I promise you're going to get some answers and maybe even some new important questions during this episode of
Lovers and Friends. I'ma take you on a trip, baby, I don't pretend. I said, lovers and friends. I'ma hold you down to the end. I said,
Hi there, lovers and friends. Welcome to Lovers and Friends, a podcast. My name is Shan. Here we talk about sex, love, relationships, and intimacy. And here is my friend Brenden, which is I'm umming this. I'm having a cause for pause because I have an episode that's called "I'm a grown-ass woman who doesn't have any friends." And then someone commented, every fucking episode you open it with, and here's my friend. What I meant by that is that I don't tend to have a lot of active friendships with people that I know what's happening with them at any given time and vice versa. And I feel really grateful that we are developing. I feel like now we're friends. I'm questioning it as I'm saying it because you're not chiming in.
I'm just saying it's true for me. We are friends,
We're not active friends though, because I actually don't know what's happening. We are check-in friends.
Yeah, and for me, that's more powerful because the status of my life, how I travel and stuff. So anybody, whenever I walk in through the doors of your house with you and Jared, it feels like we pick up where we left off, even if there was 6 months in between.
Yes.
There's no awkward, so how you been,
Yes.
And I appreciate that.
That actually makes sense because that's probably the culture you're used to, being a nomad, that you have lots of people that you have meaningful connections with that you may not see for years at a time. But I think the average person, has people who live close and should know how they're feeling at any given time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel that deeply just because I've had to learn to be that way, learn to enjoy the moments when I walk through your front door and I'm with you and Jared and your babies. I'm this is a beautiful moment. I hold on to those things because I know for sure with you being a very busy parent, an amazing businesswoman also, it's you have shit going on. I got shit going on. We ain't gonna probably see each other another half a year.
Yes, but I've been seeing you a lot more frequently, which I really deeply enjoy.
I'm coming to a point in my life where it's I don't necessarily despise travel, but I'm not as gung-ho about it like I used to be. It used to be this thing where I want to go do it and want to go make new connections. And now I'm just I'd rather post up in one spot for a couple months.
Actually, before we continue, because this is an all-in-one episode, who the fuck are you? Because I feel I'm this is my friend. That does not qualify you to speak and be a meaty man. You have tons of other qualifications and cool things that you've done and an expertise that has brought you to amazing places, which is where we met in Turks and Caicos when we both worked on Too Hot to Handle. And tell the people about what wakes you up every day. I wanted to think of the word, ikigai?
The term ick?
Ikigai? It's hella wrong. But it's a term in Japanese. Oh, guys, this is why I need edits. It's a Japanese word to describe someone's why. So they said in Japan, they don't have retirement. They just have ikigai. Please insert the right word here. But in essence, as you grow older, your why becomes different. Yeah. But everybody still has something that gets them up in the morning. Yeah. So what is your ikigai and what gets you up in the morning? And tell people about it.
So my why, well, first who I am, I'm from New York originally, between there and Jersey, and I have a heavy sports background. And so I've always been a part of a team entity, co-regulation, blah, blah, blah. That led me off to traveling. I went to college away, kept going further west, landed in Japan, Australia, different places playing ball, and got exposed to different cultures.
Baseball, right?
Baseball, yeah.
You know, you can't say ball. That's reserved for basketball.
I know. I mean, I'm from a basketball family though, but I'm the only baseball player. I'm the eclectic one, the alternative. But I started getting exposed to different cultures and teachings and stuff. And I used to be a practicing Christian at the time. And then when I got to different places, I was born again at the time. So I was like, there's no way that people who are out here are going to perish in an eternal hell because they don't admit that Jesus is their savior, essentially. That was like my thought. So I was like, I'm open to learn new things in the area. Came across some cool teachers, and it got me into learning about Tantra, learning about Taoist Tantra, Tibetan Tantra, and sexuality. And it really influenced not just me sexually, but also just how I related to people, related to life, and just made connections and friendships.
This is not your first time collaborating with me professionally. Like I said, we've worked on that Netflix show together, but on 3 different seasons, right?
Yeah.
Maybe more. But in addition, you have been on my YouTube channel where you taught tantric massage, and you were on one of our most listened to episodes with Tanariel about sex magic. Mm-hmm. So if people are curious to hear more on this platform in particular about your expertise, they can go to those. Mm-hmm. Today you are here, not as an expert, always as an expert, but as someone who's had a vulnerable aha of late that you want to share. And I asked you for a story to get us into it. So I don't have my cacao, but if I did, I'd be sipping it right now. And Brendan sells cacao. And I'd be asking you to do tell.
Yeah, I know you loving that tea. Armpits are sweating.
Okay, before we get into that story, get cozy. And speaking of which, support for today's episode comes from Jenni Kayne. Layer Up season is here, and if you're not ready, it is not too late to start your fall wardrobe refresh. Jenni Kayne is a California brand through and through, and their staples make getting dressed easier and chicer. Is chicer a word? We're gonna make it one. Think minimalist and effortless, but totally refined. From luxurious cashmere sweaters and iconic accessories to elevated versions of your everyday basics. Not to mention the most incredible home essentials too. Jenni Kayne is here to help you live your best season yet. And for a limited time, our listeners get 15% off their first order. This is all from my soft girl, chic girl, minimalist queens. They have all the how do you get that look pieces that you see in street style, but you can't seem to translate into your own wardrobe. And that is because even though they look like basics, the quality, the cut, and the colors are absolutely not. For example, the cashmere pea coat. This is the kind of piece that you will buy once and pass down to your kids or to your play kids. Add to cart for me. Get inspired and get into jennikayne.com. And when you're ready to bring something home special for yourself or for someone special, use the code LOVERS at checkout to get 15% off.
My biggest aha moment and realization, because intimacy is my thing. Like, of course, with intimacy, sexuality is all in the umbrella, but relating is what's starting to mean more to me. Like, that's above all in regards to relationships. And I was just having a think back about like my travel experience and all the amazing encounters that I've had with beautiful women around the world. And I was thinking when I was young how much I would chase. And this is something that my friend has, he brought this concept to me. How much I've chased fireworks in my life. And fireworks in the realms of, people saying in sex, like the dopamine hit, like the oxytocin, we want those things. But also just in connections. And in traveling, I would meet like amazing people. And then like get these sparks and flying. And I'm like, okay, I have the capacity to hold this like, this energy of a new connection. But also there was no capacity to hold the connection if it went left or went right. Like it was more, I was here for the fireworks show, but then I would dip out, if things didn't work out. I didn't have the capacity. And I like to say, it's like, we know the term kaboom. It's like I was here for the ka, but I would like dip for the boom, and that was my MO. And in working with so many men over the years, I'm like, I see this pattern, not just from me being that way in the past, but also a lot of men being so open and available for the beginning stages of connection, but then not having the capacity or not choosing to have the capacity to be able to be there in open communication and vulnerability in deciding whether this is going to go the long distance or it's just a now thing. So I think about an experience that I had, and this was when I was in Australia. I was on a baseball contract, not a ball contract, a baseball contract.
Thank you.
For a year, and we had a beautiful romance, you know, and everything was checking out. That it was like an amazing experience, and we were also sexually monogamous at the time, and it was clear on that. But as like time kept going by and we're getting closer to like my contract ending, it was like this undertone of like it's assumed that like I'm gonna be leaving and she's gonna be staying there. And I was so there for the ka and the kaboom, and I didn't have it in me to be able to communicate that, like to clear things up that, hey, I'm not going to be staying here. So,
and I'm not going to be bringing you with me.
And I'm not going to be bringing you with me. Exactly. And I don't have any plans of coming back and or you coming to see me. So it's like I left this thing in like in the void, you know, and in being in masculinity work now, I see how terrible that is for a nervous system, how terrible that is for relating, for intimacy. And not only for the person in front of me, but also like for me, because there's a level of shame that's coming in that like, yo, why can't you just clear this shit up? You know, why can't you be open and honest about the status of this connection?
Were they asking with their words, with their body, with both?
Yeah, it was definitely like a big ass elephant in the room, you know? Big ass elephant in the room. And I was thinking about this the other day because I was like speaking about the ghosting culture and about like how like I can see how people who are unequipped ghost and how easy it is to be in that space because I've done that. I've been ghosted and also I've ghosted. I've been on both ends of that. And in this situation, like our whole year together was like this beautiful like dopamine fireworks show, you know?
Can you take me to a beautiful memory?
Yeah.
She already knows it's her, Brendan. Don't try to make it. She already knows you're talking about her.
Yeah. We just had this moment, and it was like, for me, it was my first time that far away from home. It was Australia. She took me up to this part of Australia that was like some of the most gorgeous beaches I've ever seen. And I was sitting here, and I was sitting there, and I was just like, this can't be real. Like, this is like stuff that I've seen in movies, like in regards to like being on a beach, like crystal blue waters, like the best food, seafood coming in. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, bro, like you don't have to leave here. Like why am I putting pressure to leave? Because the thing is, it's like the grass is greener thing kept coming into me. You know, like a lot of men do this. It's like we think the grass is greener somewhere else. Even though my grass was green as hell in that moment with her in that beautiful space, a part of me was still thinking about the other side of the fence. And I realized how terrible that was for the connection. And also when we were intimate that night, like making love and everything, like I was like, you know, I could easily just say and be honest that this is not going to be, you know, it's not going to be a thing going forward. And I was afraid, you know, I was deeply afraid. So I was on a coaching call with a client the other day, and he was experiencing something similar. And I thought back to the situation. I was just like, yo, it's so uncomfortable to be open, honest, and vulnerable as a dude, to even admit that like I'm gonna miss you, or it's like I see a future with you. And I remember,
or to your point, I don't
see a future with you. Yeah. And to put language around these things, I understand like the pain points in a lot of people, man or woman, who do ghost others, because I've lived in that situation. And no matter how much beauty that there was and how much fireworks that there was still something in me that wasn't able to actually bring it to the surface to be like, hey, you know, like I really like you, and I feel there's an expiration date to this. So I say all this to share because in the masculinity work, because I speak a lot about this with Jared and like what the hell are men doing and stuff like that. From my perspective, it's the vulnerability piece. It's a language, it's a skill, it's a muscle to be able to be like, hey, like our time is up. And on a side note, this is what really this is how you inspire me deeply, with how like a straight shooter you are, with things. Like it's either yes, no, I don't like that. And then it's like, but also for you, it's like, if you don't like that, but you're still open to hear why, and I feel that's a very important thing for a man to be able to do, to discern. And yeah, so it's, I'm getting a little sentimental inside of me now because I'm thinking about all these moments that have defined intimacy for me, and how much of these patterns I had to repeat to be able to get to a space to be like, hey, just talk to her, just be in that space. And it's okay, whatever happens.
Tell me more about that.
What kind of tea do you want?
Before we go a layer deeper, I want to let you know that this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Now, a couple of months ago, I realized that I was in a phase that even though everything was going well, I still just felt really off. And I realized through talking it out that for such a long time, my ability to think ahead and focus on the future is what led to all of my success. But now my inability to stay present made it really impossible for me to enjoy it. So have you ever felt like that before? Like your brain is getting in the way of its own happiness and productivity. Now, therapy can help you figure out what's holding you back so you can work for yourself instead of working against yourself. Kind of like my man Brendan said. What are you doing to work on yourself these days?
What am I not doing? I use different modalities. So I have a therapist. That's a big one for me. And I also have, I'm not going to use the term. I have a teacher in the Amazon.
So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It is entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no cost. Like I've said before, you can do video chats, you can do phone chat, you can do text, you can do email. I used to do email and phone chats when I used BetterHelp. It was what worked best for me, but you decide what's best for you. Make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lovers today to get 10% off your first month. Again, that's betterhelp.com/lovers for that 10% off your first month.
In the realms of tantric relating and intimacy and building deeper connections, it's also our responsibility to be the riverbed for the river flow. If that makes any sense. Like the flow of water is determined by the structure underneath it. And communication and open and honest vulnerability is that. And yes, with our partners, but then also with our boys, our homies, our dudes, as a muscle and practicing that.
So in this particular story that you're telling, you ghosted her?
It wasn't a ghost. We still maintained the connection.
How did it end?
But there was a lingering. There was a lingering that was really unsettling, because I wasn't in the space to be like, hey, it's not happening, We had a beautiful ending. She brought me to the airport and everything, sweet tears of goodbye. But then like right when I was out of that physical space with her, it was like something shifted in me, like, okay, the grass is greener over there, and I'm going to go seeking that thing.
So you were able to let go.
I was able to let go.
But you knew she was still holding on.
Absolutely. And I understand too, it's always more difficult for the person who stays and then the person who leaves, regardless of anything. So without the clear communication and the openness to want to resolve and to just address the elephant in the room, there was definitely turmoil that was created in the space between us.
We were talking about this briefly upstairs, but you associated all of these experiences with the boom that you said, which I think is a beautiful thing to admit, you are not equipped for or have not been equipped for to manage. What are some of the things that happen in the boom that you've been afraid of?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I self-inquire about this when it comes to intimacy. And the boom is like, let's say, falling off of an illusionary pedestal of like, oh, like he's a good guy, he took care of me, but it's like I'm gonna be a villain essentially, like the villainness of that, like it's like that brings cringe to me, not looking strong, or all these stereotypical things that men deal with, that I've experienced too. It's like the fall from grace, the inevitable fall from grace is probably the main thing.
It's interesting because it's self-fulfilling prophecy, because your boom across the board has probably been he disappeared, he didn't show up,
Absolutely.
He didn't stay. But I guess to your point, you never had to face that. By the time that they experienced that disillusionment, you were not in Vision anymore.
Yeah, I was on to the next, next location, next this, next that, next training, whatever it might have been. There was always something to fill in the void of just not addressing the situation. Yeah, it's really, and I feel these things like in regards to relating, it highlights that like the capacity of the boom to me is that's the intimacy. Like that's the actual intimacy is the boom. It's not the cut. It's not the cut. Like the cut to me is more biological. It's like let's get it, it's that. But the boom is where we actually build genuine connections. Like that's where we build lifelong lovers and commitment. And that's the thing that like I didn't have the muscle for that. And I also know so many men out there that I've worked with and who hit me up, like they struggle with the capacity with that muscle to be able to build that intimacy in the boom.
People call this a fear of commitment, dumbed down. Does that apply to you?
I would say no, because once upon a time I was engaged. I don't know if I ever told you that.
No.
Yeah, I was engaged.
We're not really friends.
Yeah, I don't even, you're a stranger, Shan. Who are you? Who is you? I was engaged.
Not hard to believe.
Yeah. I was engaged one time and like I was all in and it went south. Like there was definitely some deceit on the other end and like infidelity, and it really like shifted me into this like the grass has to be greener space, and so when it came to things, I was like, my heart was always front facing and always open, but it was never like a fear of commitment. It was more of like, is the grass greener somewhere else? Like, is this the thing? Almost seeking perfection and imperfection. So yeah, I would say commitment is like, I've never had a fear of commitment by any means, because let's say like my life personally, subjectively, it's like I've committed to, let's say, sports, committed to training, committed to my business, committed to clients, and I'm there for that. But it was more of like, I'm going to dip out before I get hurt, and then, so that was like the ramifications.
I think you're describing a fear of commitment, but the words in your mouth. But what I'm hearing, I think is actually interesting to me, is that it's an equal mix of a lust for the ka and the fear of the boom. And that's what it is, because it's not because I feel like you're also acknowledging that there will be no person that you're going to feel those everlasting butterfly in your stomach, days on the perfect beach, forever feelings with. That there's every person, there is no grass that is ever going to be that green. So that puts you in a perpetual state of hopping from one to the next, which is not a bad thing. It's just something to realize about yourself if that's what you really want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been in that space and worked with many who are in that perpetual, like the next one, or maybe this just isn't it for me, and not realizing that the intimacy that I truly seek is in that boom. It's actually in there. Yes, it's in the self, but it's also in the teamwork, in that intimacy. And it's like, no, like nobody's gonna be perfect for me, So it was such like an aha moment when I realized that seeking intimacy with the grass is greener was like a bottomless pit.
Tell me about that though, because I want to hear more about the grass is greener. Do you genuinely believe that there is a person that is more perfect than anyone you've ever met before? Is that what that means?
No, for me, it's like, well, now it's shifted from what it used to be when I was an athlete and playing. But now, like the perfection, let's say perfection, air quotes, is that somebody who is open and available and willing to repair in a space with me. Like, to me, that is like my definition of perfection now. One, because my behavior in the past was to be like, well, I don't want to get hurt. Let me close off and dip out. And then I've experienced that too. So somebody who's open and willing to repair. If somebody's not willing to be in a space of repair, for me, that's not perfection.
So then I guess it's a matter of timing then too, because maybe you've met people that you were willing to go to repair, but you weren't. And then when you were willing to go to repair, they weren't. So finding that grass is greener is acknowledging that you're going to have all those amazing feelings in the beginning. And then when things start to become layered, that person wants to go into the weeds with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, it's the seasons, you know, like acknowledging, recognizing the seasons, and then also not being afraid to speak of the actual seasons that I'm in, and then creating a space to hear what season that they're in. And I feel that's been like a big hiccup. And I wouldn't even say a hiccup because it led me to where I'm at now, a big learning from my past. And I feel a lot of people also struggle with identifying the season that they're in, and then also with the person that they're wanting to relate with.
I was going to ask that question because as I'm thinking about this, I'm always thinking about what people are hearing, because some people are hearing this from the vantage of being with someone whom they really deeply have a bond with, that person's not willing to commit and go there with them, go to the boom with them. And they might be encouraged to hear that they really want that. They just need more encouragement. On the flip side, that person just may not be in the season where they're ever going to be open to that. How do you discern the two?
Yeah. Well, personally for me, like in my experience, if I'm relating with somebody and let's say just simply asking, hey, do you have space for me to share something? And if there's no room, or there's like an itch to not, for somebody to be all in with their presence in that space, for me, it's like, I don't know if they're able to, if we can build off this. Now, with that to say, I get so many women all the time who hit me up, be like, my partner's not growing, or he's not doing the work, or I'm going to buy him some sessions with you. And I'm like, first of all, don't waste your money, because you know he ain't going to come to these sessions if you just put the money out. That's just how men work in that way. But there is a fine line, because my thing is, it's like never date potential, you know, like never date potential. However, if somebody has the standards for me, like in regards to like they're willing to repair, they're aware that they're actively trying, I'm like, to me, that's the whole kaboom, you know, for me now. Back then it wasn't.
That's a really interesting differentiation, because I was having this discussion on my podcast episode, whenever this comes out, last week though, the advice that make a list of what you truly want in a partner and become that list. But a lot of us, partnership gives us an opportunity to expand in ways we could never on our own. It gives us opportunities to heal, to have insight, to grow, to learn in ways that we couldn't do solo. We are a social species. So this idea that we have to be all of the best things and the most healed parts of ourselves before we can enter into a partnership kind of negates a lot of what the beauty of being together and in community really is. So how do you differentiate between, you're not this right now, but I'm saying yes to your potential without damning myself to falling in love of a dream that will never come to fruition?
Yeah, that's a great question. One recently was like one of my close friends in a partnership, and when they started it, he was clear that he wanted children, like at least try. And she was like, kind of like, no, I don't know. 7 years later, he's like, I really want children. She's like, no, it's a no for me, essentially. And then like, he's really upset. And I'm like, but bro, she told you and communicated clearly, like it could go either way. But so I use that example because it's like, if there's like clear and direct communication of standards and expectations, healthy expectations, without projection, I feel that's like the defining factor of like to see where somebody's at. Like I'm all for like on a first date, like asking somebody, do you want kids? You know, because I know some people are weird about things like that. Like take it slow and take it easy. I'm like, no, ask them. Like, what do they see? You know, like these are things we have to consider. I don't know how you feel about this. Like with Jared or before Jared, it's like you kind of like filtering out like what's worth your time and what isn't.
Yeah, that's a tricky one too, because then it's through partnership. I didn't realize I wanted kids until I was in love with Jared. And it was in what we shared that I found that I had the capacity and the desire to expand our love to other people. But before I knew that kind of love even was a thing, because I never experienced it, yeah, I couldn't imagine myself having kids. So it's the tricky thing. It's a gamble, right? I think that's a part of it too. You're not going to have a surefire way. And you can have hard and fast rules like don't date potential, but sometimes that works out. Yeah.
I say like the shutdown thing too. It's like, let's say like a partner, say a woman is desiring for her partner to like, you know, like expand or maybe go make a community of their own or something like that. And it's met with coldness, disassociation, or just like whatever kind of thing. I feel that gets to be looked at like with a sense of urgency. But if somebody is genuinely like trying or putting in effort, like going to stuff, I'm like, I can work with that kind of potential.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Yes. Pardon the interruption, but I want to take a quick second to invite you to reflect on that question. What are your thoughts and rules around dating someone for their potential? And while you are ruminating on that question, I want to tell you about Dipsea, an app full of hundreds of short, sexy audio stories designed by women for women. Now, you'll recall during our episode on the Kama Sutra, no R required, see, I learned, y'all. Seema was saying that one of the ways couples can get in the mood during foreplay rather than just getting right to touching is by telling each other naughty stories. And maybe you're not in the mood to think of your own story that day, and that's when Dipsea can come and play and be clutch. It can really just take the day off and take you where you want to go. Dipsea has stories for straight and queer listeners. 56% are voice acted by people of color. Sharonis Jackson is one of those voices. Plus, Dipsea has sleep stories, wellness sessions, and sexy stories that you can read, which remind me to tell you guys about the time that I made it into the Mile High Club because of a sexy story that I read on a plane. Let Dipsea be your go-to space to spice up your me time, explore your fantasies, relax, unwind, or heat things up with a partner. We actually did some sexy story time last night, and it was hot. It was really, really fun. So for listeners of the show, Dipsea is offering an extended 30-day free trial. Yes, all of this is going to be free for you guys. All you have to do is go to dipseastories.com/lovers, and for 30 days, you get to play, and I truly mean play around for free. Once again, that's DIPC. Nope, that's not how you spell it. DIPSEA stories.com/lovers. And that's how you get your extended 30-day free trial. DIPSEA. It's not that hard. I have what you want and you want what I have. And you have what I want and I want what you have. So we don't have to have the exact same things, but what you have, I either aspire to or I admire, and I create a space for that to cultivate, thrive, and flourish, whether I'm participating or not. And similarly, like you want what I have. You may not have it, but you admire the fact that it's in me. And so I think that's where potential can live. So maybe you're not there right now, but you see this thing in me and you're like, I really want that too.
Yeah.
We can do something with that. But introducing someone to a brand new concept or trying to push an idea on somebody or accepting somebody's aspiration with nothing behind it, with no action, no record of proof, that is a much bigger gamble. But all of it's a gamble regardless.
It all is a gamble. And like there's things that do, like I'm not one Tantra mind of like not ticking boxes, but things like that I have to tick, you know, of like the expanded version. I mentioned to you the other day, it's the last really prolific relating experience that I had with somebody. It's she owns a house. She's settled. She has her community, in-person community, business owner, but she has everything, you know? And it's like, I'm still on the cusp of like floating between Mexico City and coming back to the States, back and forth. I'm not a homeowner yet, you know? It hasn't been a priority for me. So in regards to seasons, in regards to, let's say, even not potential as humans, but potential in our building of a relationship, it's like, from her perspective, I see it so clearly, because for her, it's like, you know, Brendan has the potential. I could see her saying, this is me projecting. Brendan has the potential. Great guy, cool career, big heart, like
meaty.
Meaty as hell, you know what I'm saying? Meaty. And it's like, I'm actively working on myself. So like, let's say for me, that's a kind of potential, you know, because I'm not just like sitting around doing nada, you know, like I'm building my cacao brand. I'm bringing people into the jungle and the Amazon. And it's like, I'm just really in this space, and it's like, it's a kind of potential that I have that also can leave some inspiration or some hope that, yeah, we can relate to this thing.
Sidebar, what is but and?
What is what?
But and?
I just like to put and after but, because for me, I feel but negates what I just said. So I just kind of do but and. But I do like, everybody likes a little but and, you know what I'm saying?
You could just say and, but I like that. I accept that. I'm glad that you brought that relationship up, because I didn't want to bring it up because it was your business that you shared with me. But
my business is your business now, Shan. We friends.
Thank you. That's all I want from guests, okay? Just give it to me. last time I saw you, which was a week ago, I said, how's your love life? And you said, I just ended a beautiful romance. So in light of all of these ahas that you've had about only chasing the ka, not being there for the boom, having a deep desire to go there with someone, but having a lot of fears and roadblocks around the work that's going to take, how does the end of this romance kind of fit with the new narrative that now you're ready to settle down, be grounded, and go there with someone?
Yeah, the new narrative is like, because like, let's say with that relating, like it's not, it's a different version of it. Like for me, it was like the physicality of being with her in that space, like that version ended, you know, of us relating in that space. Now it's like I set back out into the world and I'm doing my thing. So whatever that physical version of us in that space was, it's like that ended, you know, and it was really sad for me. I feel it's like it comes with the the seasons of change, you know, and that one rocked me really, really hard because you mentioned this before about seeing something in somebody else and then them seeing it in me and then wanting that. Like I see her in this space of like so settled, like I'm not really wanting to travel as much anymore like I used to. And it's like, it's really like amazing seeing her in that space, and it inspires me to create a life so I can have that for myself now through and through. But what I've...
But and?
No, just an and this time. And what I learned from that was my capacity in how to repair and have these conversations, because she is an amazing person at just being like, hey, I'm feeling this thing. Like I'm putting space to it, but I need to talk about it with you, whether it's today or tomorrow, but I need to talk about it. And what that does, like, it invites me into this space as well, because given my past as well of like kind of just like letting the elephant chill over there, like, you know, what up? You know, like it's inviting me to be open and transparent. And I've grown so much just from that kind of relating.
Is this recent relationship what has given you the beautiful epiphany that you've brought here today?
Absolutely. With like the aha moment of like clarity and patterns from the past, you know, and leaving things unsaid is just not healthy. Like in my experience, when it comes to intimacy and relating, and in me being in this space of supporting people how to relate in a spiritual sense, and how to relate in a just a basic, you know, I'm human, you're human sense, it really has grown me. And it is still like definitely a tender spot, because it's one of those things that it's like, you know, does it have an expiration date or doesn't it have an expiration date? You know, so, but we're clear on the season that we're in.
I think that's where the timing piece comes into everything, because having an aha and being ready to put action behind it are not back-to-back things. And they shouldn't be, right? Like oftentimes, if we want to change something, if I want to go from not having a degree to having a degree, there's 4 years that it takes to transition from one space to the next. And so for you, your lifestyle is still that of somebody who's nomadic and who is constantly traveling. And you, I would assume, are meeting amazing people all the time. And so even though you're acknowledging that that's really not what you're seeking anymore, that's still what's in front of you because of your lifestyle. And that can't change overnight. Yeah,
it can't. And that's a great way to put it. It's I acknowledge the season that I'm in, and I'm able to speak that now still. Yeah, this season's coming to an end. I know it, but I can say it straightforward.
You know what's fascinating about this conversation is because you're mid-30s, and as a man, it's like no one's looking at you like, why haven't you found somebody? You need to are people doing that to you? Or is...
Besides my family? besides my moms and my pops, and pops like, I'm on grandbabies, like, pops, I gotta get in a relationship first, you know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. No, there is no pressure, but there is like a level of pressure, absolutely, like being like having a platform on social media, teaching intimacy, teaching sexuality. People want the goop, you know?
Oh, interesting.
Like people want it, like I get messages all the time. Are you single? Who are you with? Or like,
but isn't that them trying to slide?
I feel it's like a slide technique, like sliding the DMs.
Yeah.
You know?
Or you think it's judgment?
I feel it's like, it could be a mixture of both, because also I can see people being like, oh, he's not in let's say a long-term committed relationship. So, but why is he teaching Tantra? Or why is he doing this? You know? And it's like, I've learned so much about intimacy in Tantra by my travels and relating with beautiful people around the world. But I feel like sometimes, and it's self-pressure too, but I'm like, that's the evolution of who I am too. It's like stepping into that kind of relating. Like, say what, look at you and Jared, you know? People love like watching the both of y'all, whether it's with popcorn or, you know, whatever, they're super fans, but they just love the Shan and Jared dynamic. It's very fruitful, it's inspiring, it's moving, you know? And I feel at times pressure to also be in that space.
Interesting, because I want you to answer that question. What have you learned that has strengthened your expertise in Tantra through being single and nomadic?
Self-cultivation. So it's like, yes, I meet a lot of amazing people when I travel, but I actually barely have sex. Like, barely. Like, self-cultivation, and you could say it's like white Tantra. It's about self-adornment, like my practices, edging, like masturbation without, ejaculating, spiritual practices.
You're referencing me as if I know what you're talking about.
I mean, I was like hoping you catch on. Like,
Pardon the interruption, but speaking of being lost in translation, I have a riddle for you from our sponsor, Babbel. Okay, you ready? What do you call a person who speaks 3 languages? Correct, trilingual. Someone who speaks 2 languages? Correct again, bilingual. Here's the trick. Someone who speaks 1 language? You call them American. Only 22% of Americans speak a language other than English at home. Start learning a new language this fall and be the exception, not the rule. Because with Babbel, you can start speaking a new language in just 3 weeks. Now, why Babbel? Because it works. Instead of paying hundreds of dollars for a private tutor, Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are designed by over 150 language experts, and these lessons are delivered with conversation-based teaching. Now, if you're traveling sometime soon, it is so easy to pick up on how to order food, ask for directions, speak to merchants without having to consult language apps. It is satisfying to learn with Babbel because when you say it and pronounce it correctly, porque cuando lo dices y lo pronuncias bien, Babbel lets you know with this sound. With over 10 million subscriptions sold, Babbel is real language learning for real conversations, and it's really time to ask yourself, why not you? And why not now? Especially because for a limited time, Lovers and Friends listeners get 55% off our Babbel subscriptions. But again, only for us when you go to babbel.com/lovers. Get 55% off at babbel.com/lovers. Spell it out. You know I'm great at this. BABBEL.com/lovers. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Edging is a sexual practice for a man. It's essentially masturbating without ejaculating. So if there's a scale of, let's say, 0 to 10, if there's, arbitrary, but it's like 0 is flaccid penis, 10 is like super hard erection, about to ejaculate or is ejaculating. Edging is a practice that as a man, we want to stay between like a 6 and a 7 on that scale. So it's like we almost get to the point of ejaculation, and then it's like we get up and start breathing and move that energy of like that orgasmic feeling back into the body. Chill, and then go right back into it. So it's a sexual practice of self-cultivation, discipline, which is a big one for men and relating in sex. So that's a part of like white Tantra, and that's what Tantra's taught me, was discipline with myself. That semen retention.
Does that lend itself to lasting longer? Does that lend itself to better orgasms, or am I missing the point?
As a man, it leads to extended orgasms because as a man, it's like the way I like to put it, it's like when we physically ejaculate, it's like a closing, it's like our shoulders go in, our heart, everything's closing. But the orgasmic feeling is right before the ejaculation. It's like the opening happens, and then right after the physical part happens, it's a closing, So this practice helps keep the opening open. That makes sense. And that translates to when I'm in a intimate sexual space with somebody, that I can keep going and nurturing the sexuality, the space. Like, I'm not just going to be one and done. I'm not just going to come once and be done. I'm practicing and cultivating myself to have long periods of sex that's really intimate and fruitful. So essentially, men can orgasm over and over again, but it takes work and practice. So this practice is just one of many that is from ancient practices that we can use. So bringing it back to like traveling, it's like that's pretty much my life. I do these practices to help sustain me. And I know that's going to translate one day to with a partner.
Because Tantra is a lot about connection, and it is something that you traditionally do with a partner, but through doing it with yourself, you've been able to grow immensely. Have you been able to have deeply connecting, loving experiences in these ka romances? Or are you aware that there's still so much that you have yet to experience, having never gone to the boom?
Yeah, there's so much in the ka experiences. And one thing that Tantra has taught me too, like, and that I've been practicing the last several years, is that to slow down. Like, yeah, you see fireworks, bro, but like, don't run towards them. Like, take a seat. And that's been the biggest thing, because in the past, when I was athlete playing ball, I would just dive head first right into like the fireworks. Like, oh my God, it's amazing, which it is. But this version of me is in a space where it's like, bro, just pull a beach chair and just observe it, slow down. And that Tantra has taught me the slow down. And I've experienced this with past connections. I mentioned one with the podcast with Teneriel, with that amazing, like, glowing crystal raindrops fall. Yeah, that was an experience where it was like, wow, this is deeply tantric and deeply present. Because a tantric lifestyle is just, and tantric relating is just, how present can I be in this moment despite how I'm feeling? Like, even if I'm in my chaos, can I still be here with you, be here in this space, and also not afraid to express where I'm at? One of my Tantra teachers, he would tell me, he'd be like, yo, Bam, you can't bake bread in a cold oven. He goes, you got to warm it up. He's an old school black dude. You got to warm it up. And I'm like, it makes so much sense. And there was a guy in the space. So he goes, but can I touch your breast? He goes, no, not even touching her breast. Like, you have to just touch the spots away from her, from her parts. Like, find the freckles on her body, like, move around, slow down. Because as men, we have this thing, it's like, like right away, there's times and places for that, but we want to just strip. And that also translates to the intimacy that I've also found for myself. It's like, I went strictly into the fireworks and I fizzled out before I even got to the boom, to have the capacity to be able to have a long-standing intimacy.
There's the question. I mean, that was a beautiful analogy. And as you said that, you can't bake bread in a cold oven. That applies to relationships too, right? Like, you do need I'm very big on the slow. Like, you're hitting all my spots right now. I've done multiple episodes about the joy with dangers of love at first sight and of fast love. And as I'm even hearing you talk, we had an episode where we traditionally have a third segment, which we don't have this time because you're my meat. And I didn't get to have a third segment in a particular episode. And what I really wanted to reflect back with somebody else is that, because in this person's romance, it was fast and it was furious and it was delicious, right? Like, it's that meal that you sat down, that your mouth watered and you devoured right away. And it was so good eating it and it was so good digesting it. And nobody is a fortune teller. That could just be the whole story, that it continued to be that savory and that fast and delicious. But a part of me wanted to be like, what would be so bad about slowing down?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's interesting because even when you said, for men, sometimes going into it so fast, you lose any stamina that you would have had to go for the longevity part, or you become so disappointed by the drop down that you become uninterested in a way that maybe you wouldn't have if you're just a little bit slower. So it can actually impede romance. But for women, I think traditionally we're fed the belief system that the faster it is, the more real that it is.
Yeah, no, and that applies. And I'm definitely speaking from a masculine stance when it comes to slowing down, just of like, we can even say like the patriarchal type of like way of relating that's been like, spoon fed to us in culture. It's like, traditionally, it's like, you look at the world, it's like, well, I want to build a house here. I'm going to cut down all these trees and then just plop a home here. And it's like, that's not how we warm up the oven. It's like, why not build around the trees? Why not build inside? Like, let me build a structure around the tree so it still can grow. But a lot of times in our mentality and our appetite as men, we get into the space of like, piece of meat, let me just devour it, It's like, but what if we went a different way about it? And again, this is for somebody who desires to have long-standing intimacy. Because there's times that I was just like, I don't want that. I just want the steak, biologically. But yeah, it's like in the relating and the longevity of things, I feel for a man to be conscious and aware of like slow down, and that's the discipline part. This is also the part about the practice that I was saying with the edging. It's like if I'm able to, let's say, and I'm gonna say with air quotes again, conquer myself in regards to like this feels so good masturbating, but I'm gonna stop right there and like withhold myself from that full-on pleasure. I'm gonna get there, but it's just not gonna be right now. I'm gonna do this another 10 times before I allow myself to release and open up. That has taught me so much about the slowdown. And it's like pleasure is always gonna be there, but can I slow down so I can meet it?
Oh, I mean, there's so much that you're saying that I'm just like, sometimes I hate when that happens, when somebody drops a gem and then they keep talking and then I want to go back to that gem drop and I stop listening to you because I'm like, that shit was fire. And you just said a bunch of fire shit right there. But that house analogy rocked me because that I can like totally relate to, where I've had romances where someone came into my life and they cleared all the trees. They're like, this is it. This is my partner. You know, people that I've known for 2 weeks who were, you know, trying to encourage me to open up sexually with them. And I'm like, hey, I'm on this time of month. And they're like, I'm going to have your children. You're going to have my children. So why would that matter? And, you know, did that, cleared the space and made this thing and brought this fantasy and flew you out, did all those things and then built the house and decided they didn't want to live there anymore. And now I'm laid bare rather than the person where it's like, when they built around my current ecosystem and they didn't try to interrupt what already was there. And if they decided in the end that they didn't want to stay, the disruption was just so much less minimal and so much less difficult to cope with in the loss because I didn't feel like I lost everything buying into their dream.
Yeah, wow. That part you just said about like, now this house is there and everything's cleared out and now it's just me in the house.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah. Yeah. I've done that to partners, past partners as well. And also vice versa. So that hits, you know? And yeah, it's just like this bully mentality and intimacy. Go ahead.
I want to ask this because I know that when I started getting really good at making intimate connection, because it's a gift, I really loved people looking at me as their soulmate. And I really knew how to do it. And so now that you said that you've done it, I'm like, I haven't done it. I'm like, bitch, yes, you have. And you kind of enjoyed it in some ways that like even building my house, I knew that I'm like, I'm not staying here, but look at this cool house.
I know. It's a dope house.
And in your mind, you're like, no, I'm building this for you. And then you're going to have this house with this water slide. And they're like, every time I go down that shit, I think about you. Do you fear that the best person for you has moved on?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like what could have been, you know? But also like with Tantra and like living as present as I can be in the moment, it's I don't go back to those. Like I process them, I get through them, I grieve them in my own way. You know, I grieve them, and then it's like I know that the best has yet to come. Like in regards to where I'm at, there was a time though where I carried a lot of shame and I carried a lot of sadness for those situations. But present day, it's like I feel everything truly does happen for a reason, and the growth that happens from those connections have led me to this point to be able to be in a space to be intimately vulnerable in regards to intimacy, subjectively. Vulnerability doesn't equate to softness. Vulnerability is like very masculine and clear communication. So I associate masculinity with vulnerability for clear and directness because of my experiences in the past. It's like how many times I left somebody hanging, how many times somebody left me hanging. To be able to feel that full kaboom in wholeness, not just the ka or not just the boom, but the full kaboom is to be fully open and vulnerable about your desires in the moment.
Where can people find you?
Hit me up on IG, Brenden Durell.
When you give this like beautiful, profound speech, I'm like, yo, so hit me up on the gram.
That's who I am though, Shan. That's why y'all keep inviting me over, because I'm not here in a loincloth.
That's so true. Yeah, and then get your cacao.
Oh yeah, and I have an amazing cacao brand coming out. Cacao it's going to be from West Africa, from Latin America, and it's a brand that's supporting regenerative farming and also supporting and ending child labor in West Africa with the cacao industry. So it's a dope project that me and my homies are doing. But yeah, I'm the chocolate man too.
Brendan, just a man in service. Ladies and gentlemen, what else can we say? Thank you so much to my friend Brendan, whom I'm going to get to see very soon, I believe. So look out for us on the gram, baby. I believe Brendan's still single. So I'm going to just tell all my lovers and friends right now, I co-sign. Go ahead and slide on in the DMs. Just saying. Speaking of sliding places, thank you to everybody who's shown love to the podcast of late. There's been a few people who have come back. Oh, no. Let me tell you what I did. I went this week to speak at CultureCon and I met so many lovers and friends. It was such a divine experience to like touch you and be with you. I like really actually got emotional standing on stage and just like looking out, just the sea of beautiful, smart, empowered, profound people. Some who, were familiar with the work that I do, and that just, it means the world. So thank you so much to everybody who I met at CultureCon who said hi, who truly not just made my weekend, but like really lit a fire in me in so many ways. And another way you can light my fire, because I like to light yours too. I'm gonna tell you how you light mine. That's good communication, is by going and rating and reviewing the podcast. So you can do that by going to Apple or you go to Spotify. There's a rate and review section. I'm gonna read out some reviews right now, but I'll also read out a review from YouTube because that's a different way of rating and reviewing. Not as beneficial, and a lot more complainy, but yeah, that exists as well. So on the last episode, if you guys watch the pod versus listen to the pod, there tends to be more issues with watching it because y'all, producing a 1-hour show every week is fucking hard. And doing that in audio is a challenge, but also aligning it with graphics and making sure the camera's set up and then doing color correction on the camera, then doing lower thirds and then adding in credits and then adding in visuals for the theme song. It can just be very daunting. So this isn't to give a major excuse, but right now it is just Jared and I on the team and we're figuring it out. We're probably going to stay like this till the end of the year just because we've had a lot of different people come through and we've just kind of found in the end that right now, at least, we just need to get the work done and put our noses down and then figure out what the employee thing looks like top of the year next year. So there's just going to be mistakes until Jared and I get some support and have the capacity to look for the kind of support that we need. So there was a few complaints about, which is valid, don't get me wrong. I want you to have a positive viewing experience as well, but the camera's out of focus and there was some issues last time. But hopefully those of you who just listen to the pod have no idea what I'm talking about. But yeah, so I just wanted to address that. And Duo Mom says, the information is amazingly useful and helpful. The delivery is straight, no chaser. Love your format, love your delivery and smooth. It's smooth going down. I like that. Thank you. I really do. I always often reflect on my voice. I'm somebody who's like an aficionado of speakers. I love consuming great speakers. As many of you know, I did speech therapy for a number of years to work on my speech, to make sure that I was speaking deeper and slower because I watched previous content. I used to be really high pitched and like really, really fast. It was kind of annoying to listen to. But I actually recently heard a different style of speaking and I was like, oh, maybe it's time for me to go back to school and evolve that once again. So I appreciate the smooth going down, but it might get even smoother. It's going to sound corny until it gets natural, y'all, so bear with me. Okay. Audis said this week's episode made me bawl. She's talking about the episode about toxic relationships with Leah, which, full disclosure, guys, to this day, I'm not sure if it's Leah or Leia. I really should confirm and ask that question. She related so much to the guest and her experiences, as did so many people, and I found a partner now who loves me the way that I've always needed. Congratulations. I'm so happy to hear that. Okay, so someone said, great pod, fun listen. Just found this podcast and really enjoying it. This was a username 33785036. Thank you so much. Okay, I want to call this one out because DJ Silk said the Podcaster's Podcast. As a fellow podcaster and content creator, I have such a deep admiration, appreciation, respect for Shan and lovers and friends. Attention to detail and commitment to quality is consistently delivered. Audio, video, monologues, and interviews is second to none. Wow, that means a lot, especially given the fact that we've been fucking up a little bit of late. I also want to call this out, DJ Silk, because what's your podcast name, babe? If I'm going to be thanking you for showing me love, I want to show you love. So y'all, if you're going to rate and review, pop your shit too. Put a little promo in there for yourself. I will read that. So that's your homework for next week. Rate and review and tell me what's great about you and I'll let the people know. And I hope you have a great week until then. Bye, lovers. Bye, friends.
What happened? Why you looking at me like it's magic? Used to have you reaching climaxing. Flip you over wet Atlantic. I know what happened. Now you say you passed it. Girl, I know that's tragic. Don't be so dramatic. Let's reattach it.